Today we are learning basketball with Stephen Cameron of Orlando Magic HQ. 45 minutes here, talk a little magic.
Yeah, no, man, I'm doing great. Obviously, I'm like chilling, having a Father's Day breakfast with my family, and then get bombarded with some great news. And was a fun time trying to I would check the phone and be on it and see what's going on and catch up with all the new reactions and stuff. But then just put the phone away, have a nice day with my family, playing with my daughter and whatnot. But now today and last night after she went to bed, I just like kind of soaked everything in, and I'm just excited to be a Magic fan and someone that's covering the team right now because this trade just like does so much for us, and we'll get into it. But yeah, I'm doing pretty great, man. How are you doing?
Hey, I mean that about sums it up. I'm doing fantastic as well. I mean, what a day for Magic fans, Magic media, whatever you want to call it. Anyone that appreciates basketball in Orlando. I mean, funny enough, I was with my dad as well watching a movie, and I look down at my phone, got 30 texts, and I'm halfway through this movie. I'm like, what's going on? Group chat's blowing up. Oh, the huge trade. Oh, phone's about to die, and I got halfway through this movie left. So I guess I'm just gonna have to sit with this trade and
Yes,
celebrate like silently whispering excitement to my dad, who's also a Magic fan, where I like, all hype in a movie where you can't be loud at all. So,
totally.
silent high fives and all that. We won the trade. So that was kind of fun. Finished the movie. It was actually pretty good.
What
Ballerina,
movie?
the John Wick spinoff. It was
Okay,
actually
yeah,
some good action. Who
good.
would have thought it lived up to expectations? So definitely fun action movie. Definitely lived up to that. But just a kind of a cool moment. We come home and just see all the Twitter go crazy and see all the details. And today we're learning basketball just about that. Let's dive into all things here with Desmond Bane, new Orlando Magic. I mean, the offense is saved theoretically. We got our guy, So
Yes.
first thoughts right off for instant reaction.
Instant reaction was just like they went bigger than I thought. I think a lot of us were thinking they were going to do a little bit more of a move in the middle, going after like the names that were all circled around the Magic: Anthony Simons, Kobe White, Colin Sexton, Ty Jerome, like all those types of names. Nikhil Alexander Walker, like those were the types of good players, but more of a mid-level player than to get a high-end starter on a near max contract. And I was like, all right, they're buying in bigger than I thought. That means ownership is willing to invest the money that they need to invest and know the complications that come with making a trade of this magnitude. The front office is willing to part with some of their long-term draft capital because they invested a lot into this trade, 4 first-round picks and a pick swap going up to 2030. But they're ready and they are confident in like this type of a move being what they need to be a true force in the East. Last year they were potentially going to be a force in the East before all the injuries hit, but now they're even a bigger force because Desmond Bane just fills so many offensive holes that this team had to work on. And there's still a few more things to work on. I'm sure we'll get to those at some point, but in general, like I was just thrilled. We can talk about like the value of the trade itself in a little bit, but like my instant reaction was, okay, we're here. This team is ready to go all in, um, financially and draft asset wise. They're going in. They didn't lose too much player wise as far as active players on the roster. And they're ready to make this push, which I think is a phenomenal place to be in. When you're a fan or a media member getting ready to cover this team and view this team, and also like as a franchise that has an expensive roster, but it's not as expensive next year or the year after as it will be when Franz and Paulo are on their third contracts, which both potentially could be, max at the next level. They're kind of on the rookie scale max contracts, and that is much more feasible to work around than when they're on their next contract. So I'm ecstatic, man. I'm absolutely ecstatic. What about you? What was your initial reactions?
Absolutely, man. I mean, how could you not be hyped? Like just this whole city of Orlando it's time to get behind this team because like you said, they're all in. Like this trade shows we are not only going all in, but can still make moves and go all in. Like they didn't have to. What stood out first was they didn't have to sacrifice, some of these players, young coveted players, prospects, Jalen Suggs, Anthony Black, Tristan Da Silva, that all probably had trade value. It seemed like they preferred the trade value or preferred holding on to their own guys rather than future first round picks, including the coveted 2026 pick swap with Phoenix that we'll probably get to. That's probably the biggest blue chip or potential blue chip piece being sent out in this whole deal that the Grizzlies get back. Which we'll get into in a minute, but just instant reaction is Bane is exactly what we asked for. It's funny, literally the day before the trade, I tweeted out that why I thought this team was being so patient was that the challenge was that they're trying to find a way to fix the offense, but without sacrificing the defense and the team identity while doing it. And Desmond Bane is literally the answer to that. Like if you go through the top 10 names of the guys Magic fans wanted, how many of them actually were positive defenders on that list? Like there weren't a whole lot of them. They could all
None of them.
pull up and hit the right. I mean, they could all hit the pull up three. They could all run some offense, but they weren't also considered plus positive, if not tough, borderline elite defenders.
Kobe White was like a neutral.
Yeah, there just wasn't much there to be had. So I think, like some of the names with after the Boston injury, maybe those names popped up, like Trey Murphy in New Orleans, and then Derek White and Jaylen Brown, I guess if they were actually available. Those are some names that have kind of been floating around that did have a little defense that would have checked these boxes as well. But what was crazy is Bane flew out like totally under the radar. Like this was not a name that anyone thought was available, like was never in a trade rumor. I have not seen any connection for this at all until it just happened. So that it's always kind of cool when like it comes out of nowhere like that. It's just like smack dab, and it's the polar opposite of the Oladipo trade where it's like a big, draft basketball holiday practically, and you get like the worst news possible that your team just traded your best player or favorite player or whatever it is, versus now it's like your team's actually trading for the guy this time. You're giving up a bunch of pieces of what ifs for the actual known quantity of this guy's a known star who like we hit on already. Let's hit on why he fits so well, what he fits so well with this offense. Like
before we go too deep into it, I just want to like circle back to like this first, like the Oladipo trade is like this is not a desperate move. This is we know who we are as a team and we're going to get better. Where Oladipo, Ibaka, Bismack, that whole offseason was we don't know who we are, but we think this might work. And this is totally, totally different. Like
right. It feels like
the Magic have an identity, complete identity already. This trade doesn't sacrifice the identity that much at all. Like it's going to be fine defensively. And it's fixing holes immediately on the offensive end. And that's not what the offseason with the Oladipo trade was. This is a young player that's youngish player. He's 26, about to be 27, but is on contract for another 4 years. Can be with this team and grow with this team for a while. And it's just, this is a growing piece to get to the next level. And that is what is super exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I view this team as a like already a top 4 seed and top 2 defense in the East, but that was like when healthy before they traded for Bane. To me, the last step to go from like pretending in the playoffs where you're just happy to make it and contending, you think you have a real chance to win it, was this high volume 3-point shooter. And they somehow got one, like we mentioned, without sacrificing the defense, who also brings scoring and playmaking. And what really stands out is just like the modern basketball of it all. Like there's somehow 5 ball handlers on this team, but not really a traditional point guard. Like it's 5 different guys that this team can rely on for offense in different ways. I kind of view it as Paolo Franz and then Anthony Black as something of downhill point forward types, with Suggs and Bane doing more of the floor stretching, the closeout attacking, spacing the floor. So you can picture in your mind, Franz driving into the paint and kicking out to a Suggs or a Bane who have that lethal 3-ball shooting gravity and can kind of keep the ball moving as a connector. And that to me is how you kind of maximize the roles of these guys in the offense. And the like one of many bonuses is that we saw what happens when injuries happen like last year. When you lose two of these guys, you still have three more to run an offense without having to rely on bench players to be your third option. Like even if Paulo and Franz are both hurt, you still have Suggs, Bane, and Black to run an NBA offense, and that's a heck of a lot better than nothing. And what kind of the bare bones options some teams have when it comes to depth. So it's kind of like having multiple stars, multiple all defensive team player types that you can rely on for a whole mess of different ways, whether it's depth for like injuries, whether it's depth for different matchups and different lineup possibilities. You could play them all together and have this like lethal small ball lineup. Can we see what could that look like? So that's like the ultimate 2K Death Warriors lineup, like with Black and Suggs and Bane and Franz and Paulo. What does that look like? That's exciting. And then how does the center rotation kind of shake out? So I do think I do think there are more moves to make, but like they don't necessarily have to do a single thing from here on. They could just take the pick at 25, maybe keep one or two of the seconds and sell the other one, and they already have a rotation. But there are a handful of tweaks to the rotation that we could always still see them make. Like maybe they put one more package together for another guard that can get buckets off the bench. Maybe it's like a D&3 wing. Maybe it's I kind of think the last piece would be that long-term center commitment. Like find that anchor who is either going to be like a D&3 center, maybe like you ideally like one of these rim protecting 3-point shooting centers that we see in the finals with Chet and Miles Turner, or like Kristaps up in Boston, like someone that can just fit in to the team scheme on both ends, stretch the floor, protect the rim, bring some sort of versatility to not kind of get pigeonholed in a playoff series or something. But I think Orlando has depth of center options, so I'm really not that worried about like just finding someone to play the role. But like that, in an ideal world, that's where they go next. But we don't even have to skip ahead to that. I'm still thinking about the draft, and I just dropped the draft guide for the Magic today, so I'm thinking about all their offseason options. I'm just happy to be here with Bane. I mean, what else do you like kind of about the on-court fit?
Yeah, so like on court, man, let's just talk offensively for a second. Like the Magic, they were 30th in shooting from three last year and 27th in offense, and their team was pretty much structured around a couple of ball handlers and a bunch of play finishers. And we lost two players. One of them was one of the few guys that could actually create for himself and Cole Anthony. But what you gained is one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. And I'm not just like saying that by imagine. He is legit probably a top 5, if not maybe even top 3 3-point shooter in the league. Well. Yeah, we'll get into the numbers in a second, but like, he can shoot off the dribble. He's elite off the catch. He's elite off movement. I don't have a lot of numbers off my head, but I do know that I read this morning that he is second off the catch threes off movement in the NBA last year. The only person better than him was Stephen Curry. The Magic haven't had a movement shooter since
Human Torch,
Terrence Ross. Yeah, he was good, but he wasn't great, right? He had some gravity to him, but not like this. Right. And then the last person was really JJ Redick before that, but people have a little bit of a misconstrued version of JJ Redick with the player that he became versus who he was with Orlando. He was a good shooter with Orlando, but he became elite when he went to the Clippers, and that's where he really got known for that elite shot with the movement that came with it. But yeah, I mean, it's been ages, and the fact that we have someone on that has volume with their shot too, like Gary Harris and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are both getting up 4 attempts per game. Jalen Suggs was starting to get some volume there. I think he's had last year, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but they were like 6 or 7 attempts per game, which was great. And he's increased it every year since he's come in the league. But now they have someone in Desmond Bane who has shot 7 to 8 attempts per game for the last 4 years outside of his rookie year where he shot, I think, like 5. And he is every single year he has shot just around 40%. I think it was like Again, I
Yeah.
had all these stats. I should find up my computer crashed, so I
Here,
lost a lot of my
no
tabs earlier.
worries.
But
I got some of
run
them
down
for
the
you.
numbers for me. Help me out as I'm pulling up some data
I
on my
got you. I
side.
mean, like, one thing to consider with 3-point shooting, normally the scale people use is a 3-year sample size.
Yep.
That's a pretty good estimate for predicting, like, this guy will be a good shooter over the aggregate in the future. And Desmond Bane is a 41% 3-point shooter, launching 6 threes per game for his
Yep.
career for 5 years running. And that includes his rookie season where he didn't play quite as much as you hit on. If you get rid of the rookie season and just drop his last 4 years, he's just straight up averaging 20 points a game, 5 boards, 4 assists to 2 turnovers, a steal, with 47% on 15 shots a game, 41% from three on 7 threes a game, 89% from the line, 3 free throws a game, 60% true shooting. Just like nuclear efficient across the board. If you want some splits on that, just from this past season, Bane's 38% on pull-ups. He's shooting 3 pull-ups a game and 3 catch and shoots a game. 38% on pull-ups, 43% on catch and shoots. So like just able to shoot
He
on or off the ball. And
he
there's some more here, but there's
he
numbers for
had a
days.
a couple more things for people to who are going to listen and watch this to think about is like his worst year as a 3-point shooter was 2 seasons ago at 38%.
Mm,
38%. This
down
year,
here.
his volume was down, second lowest shot attempts from 3 since a rookie. But I was just talking with Joe Mulinex from Locked On Grizzlies this morning for my podcast, and he was saying a lot of that came from having more on-ball responsibility with all the injuries that came to the team and John Morant, and him having to do a little bit more on-ball, and that affected the volume that he was getting up from 3. And that makes total sense. He's not going to have that same type of pressure here to be an on-ball creator. He will be utilized as a creator for this team, but he's not going to be expected to be the point guard of this team. We all hate the term, but it's still going to be this by committee type of creator, offense initiator type position. Who's closer to the ball, him or Jalen Suggs, will bring it up half court. They'll still eventually pass it to Franz or Paulo to do what they're spectacular at. And I imagine he's going to get back up to that 7-8 range where he's been most of his career at attempts per 3, and that's just something the Magic haven't had in ages. And now to have 2 guys, if you think about Jalen Suggs, who let's just estimate he's going to get back up to like 6 attempts per game next year, you have 2 players in the guard rotation that are going to be putting up at least 12, 13 threes combined on average per game. That's fire, Ryan.
We are playing with fire here in Orlando, finally. And yeah, to that point, I looked it up real quick here. Suggs had launched 7 threes a game last year, only 31%, but his hot season was right before 5 threes a game at 40% 3-point shooting the year before last, before he got hurt. And to that exact point, I mean, that's what I'm envisioning is just Franz, Paulo, and in theory, Black off the bench getting downhill and just kicking out to Suggs and Bane, these 3-point snipers. And that to me, like the big thing I've like just been begging for and keep kind of alluding to is like a high volume pull up 3-point sniper is how I phrase it, because it's also someone that can create and do all these other things. But at the very least, finding that high volume guy, and he happens to also be extremely efficient, is both are great indicators. But what I'm getting at is the gravity is what I'm looking for.
Totally.
His
Yeah.
gravity is just going to open up the offense for everyone. And also, to your point, Suggs's gravity too will also be kind of a part of that, unlocking it for everyone, because Suggs only played 35 games last year and had an off year from shooting. And the games he did play, he was the point guard with Paulo injured. So it was
Totally.
a lot more on ball touches for him that affected his things. The same type of idea with Baden having more usage on ball there. So now you're looking at both of them in supplementary connector roles, which I'm going to pretty much keep comparing this team to Boston's setup until we get a reason not to, with like throwing Drew Holiday,
Sure.
Derek White, Marcus Smart types next to their big wings. Like that just seems to be a working strategy that we're going for. And there isn't a traditional point guard, but as we're saying, all 4 or 5, if you count Black, can run some offense and initiate. And what's what feels very modern about it is just that everyone is a ball handler who trusts each other. They can hit the open three, and anyone can be used at any time. I mean, some more stats on Bane. He can run pick and roll. He runs 0.93 points per possession, 4 pick and rolls a game last year. 0.9 points per possession and 2 ISOs a game, 0.8 points per possession and 1 handoff a game. He's a versatile scorer already and a 3-point shooter on and off the ball. So we're looking at just the savior for this offense. It won't be. I thought Trae Young was the perfect fit. I hadn't really thought about Bane, but like
I'm not a Trae
doesn't
Young
bring
guy.
the defense. Yeah, or like a LaMelo or Garland, like that level star. But like
totally.
The defense that Bane brings and the supplementary secondary playmaking and creation, just the all around scoring, and then not to mention like his mentality, his toughness, his maturity, like all these things that everyone raves about. That's cliche, but like the Magic like those things and prioritize those professional traits in guys. And they couldn't have found a better match for this core going forward, in my opinion. So let's look at some of the picks involved. Let's look at the trade itself. So
sure.
From what I saw, by my calculations, Orlando's giving out let's first hit on how everyone in the media, this is small market bias, by the way. Everyone in the media wants to say Orlando gave up like 5 unprotected picks and just runs with the headline. That is, what's the word? That's like offensive to small markets in my mind. They're just like miswording it just to make it seem like Orlando gave up more than they did. They gave up the 16th pick. That's not an unprotected pick in this year's draft that might change.
It's an established
number one.
Pick, yeah.
Like, it's the 16th pick. You can't call it it's not unprotected.
I guess it's unprotected, but it's also not going to change.
Yeah, it's not protected. It's not anything. It's just 16. But anyway, Orlando gave up the 16th pick, the 2026 pick, including the swap, which I'll get to in a second, 2 unprotected picks, 28 and 2030, a top 2 protected pick in 2029, and a pick swap, if I have that correct. Now I'm confusing myself because there's so many.
You want me to read it off?
Yeah, I might have lost.
So you have the 16th pick this year. You have next year's pick, which we can say includes the swap rights. But if the Magic don't have a first round pick next year, there is no swap. Like, of course, swap rights are going with that, which I just think is hilarious. How people are, not you particularly, but how the media has shaped that. It includes the swap right.
Yeah,
of course it's going to include the swap rights.
The wording was
swap
very
without the picks.
Yeah, I think the wording got very confusing there because at first I thought they had traded the swap rights but kept their pick, but I misread it too. So that's where like the wording is important.
First round pick. Yep.
Yeah, and like that to be fair, like I do think that is the big asset that Memphis is prioritizing. Yeah. This is the bet that I think Orlando made, that the 2026 pick that includes the swap could come from Phoenix or Washington.
Totally.
I think the better pick of that, the Washington or Phoenix, ends up with Washington, and then the worst of those two would have ended up in Orlando. So on the off chance that the Suns trade Durant, they stink next year, they're bad, they tank, they're in the lottery, they win the lottery, and it becomes a top 4 pick, then that is a blue chip asset that could be Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa or Cam Boozer. However, and I'm just thinking Orlando's logic for that move is that is a valuable what-if asset. However, that we value the proven star that fits our timeline and team perfectly now much more than that what-if. We're just betting on the odds of all of this working out, much more proven commodity than more so I think the odds of all that happening, not the odds of the top 4. Like all of those it's a great draft class. I think that's pretty easy to understand, like the value of that. But the odds of like all of those what ifs happening is quite smaller, I think, than the odds of Desmond Bane fitting well in Orlando.
You have to give up something to get something, right?
And they saved their core players to do it.
And they did, yeah. And this pick is, like you said, it's a little complicated, but it's going to be the best draft capital in the batch of draft assets, most likely, that were sent over. It's a little bit more complicated because, like, so Magic, in simplest terms, the way I've been describing it, people, the Magic at the worst have the ability to swap with the worst pick of either Phoenix or Washington. However, the Washington pick that is that they get from the Washington pick is top 8 protected from Phoenix. So the only way, unless Phoenix and Washington were both like in the top 8, which kind of feels possible, but kind of not. It really feels more likely that Washington will probably be the worst team. Phoenix still going to have Devin Booker. They still have some nice players on that team. We know Bradley Beal is overpaid, but he's still a good basketball player. They're going to trade Kevin Durant. They're going to get good basketball players back for him. That's what they've said they want back in return, is they want good basketball players over a volume of picks. So that team, they might still be a lottery team, but they might not be as bad as people think. That you really could be looking at Washington having the 4th pick and Phoenix having like the 10th or 11th pick. And then the Magic would have been able to swap, or now the Grizzlies will be able to swap and say, hey, our pick is at 20. We want the 11th pick from Phoenix. But it gets a little, I just wanted to make sure people understand, like, it's not like the Magic we're going to get a top 3 pick. That was not going to happen. Unless both Phoenix and Washington were the 3 worst teams in the league and got some lottery luck, which is possible, but the percentages go down quite significantly. It was the Magic were going to get a lottery pick, or now the Grizzlies are going to get a lottery pick. It's still probably going to be, depends on what happens with Phoenix. It's really an unknown at this point. They're probably not, they're going to be in the lottery. It's just like, are they going to be a high lottery team or a mid lottery team? Maybe they'll be a low lottery team, so we'll find out. But that, to your point, Ryan, to simplify it all, that is the most valuable trade asset that the Magic sent out in this trade package for Desmond Bane. And to me, I'm totally fine with it, man. Like, if you want to keep all the young players, then you're gonna have to include something that's good draft wise. And that pick was it. Obviously, there's a couple extra draft picks going out there, but you also got to think like Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Cole Anthony aren't exactly on positive contracts right now. It might not be super negative, but they're certainly not desirable. So it's, yeah, I mean, you got to give up something to get something.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of good points there, especially, with Cole and KCP. Like, these are, I think they're good basketball players along with the entire like roster on the Magic. And I think the front office has put together a collection of good basketball players who are also on fairly tradable contracts. But, people have said that Cole and KCP have negative contract value, and therefore, just to get off of those, that might cost a first rounder or 2 just to get off. So if you're just shedding that salary with a first or second, and then you also bring back an all-star Desmond Bane for another couple of firsts, it's a lot easier to rationalize all these firsts being sent out. But
Yeah,
we have, I do say that I think it's a calculated risk for
totally.
Orlando here, where they're also sending out 2 unprotected picks down in the future. Now, when you look at the age timeline, Paulo and Franz should just be hitting their prime years by
27.
2028 and 2030. When, like,
Yeah.
right around that 27 age, as these unprotecteds are going out. So in theory,
And Bane
they'll
will be
be picks in the
32.
20s. Yeah. So right. And in theory, these are picks in their 20s, late first rounders that they're
Yeah,
going out. But there is a chance that injuries happen or someone
totally.
demands a trade. So that's kind of the risk. Like, there is some sort of belief in Orlando that they got the go ahead from somewhere to go all in, like you're saying. Like, they wanted to keep their players that they had already picked. And to me, the trade was always going to be a handful of these role players, like probably Cole because of the contract and what he kind of brings as a player. And I thought it would be prospects and then a few future picks. They ended up keeping all of their players and just sent extra future picks instead. I'm surprised by the lack of protections on them, but you do have to give up value to get it back, and they're just taking that gamble that because they have 5 ball handlers that are either all defensive or all-star level players, that it will be enough of a base due to their age and impact for the next 5 years to outweigh the risk of an unprotected pick going number 1 down the line. Because as we hit on earlier, even if they do have 2 or 3 injuries, they still should be competitive with a top defense and 2 or 3 of these guys healthy. So that is another reason to kind of like bet against the pick. So it's really just a bet on themselves at the end of the day.
And we don't know how these negotiations went down. They could have said, cool, you want to send us 3 picks instead of 4? We want Anthony Black. No, we don't want to give you Anthony Black. Okay, cool. You want to give us 4 picks, but the 4th one is lottery protected. We want Tristan Da Silva coming back. Well, we don't want to give you Tristan Silva, but we feel better about keeping Tristan Da Silva and giving you an unprotected pick. And for a pick that we don't even know what it'll be. If we're healthy, it'll probably be a pick in the 20s in the draft. So it's like it's calculated. There are risks for sure. If this team is injured, like you said, someone requests a trade, something could happen. But at the same point, if they needed to trade Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bane, Franz Wagner, for an example, any of those for any particular reason down the line, they're going to get picks back. These are good players that will also return stuff. They have good young players too. That it's not like they can't make moves after this either, right? Like they still have one more tradable first round pick within this timeline. Obviously, the further we get into this, the more first round picks will become available to trade again. They have a boatload of extra second round picks, and they have players like Jonathan Isaac, Oga Pataze, Tristan Da Silva, Anthony Black, that they can, do different things with. What does you want to improve the bench? Okay. What does Jonathan Isaac, Tristan Da Silva, and some seconds get you? Like that opens the door to things, right? You could simplify it. What does just Jonathan Isaac and some seconds get for you? Can that get you kind of that scoring guard? Obviously, it won't be an amazing guard, but could that get you like a what's the dude I'm thinking? Not Colin Sexton, but the other guy at the Jazz, the other guard, older dude. What's his name? Oh, come on. I wanted him on the Magic for the longest time.
Oh, what? Like Patty Mills or something?
No, not him. He's still currently on the Jazz. Why am I tattooed guy everywhere?
Jordan Clarkson,
right? Could Jonathan Isaac and a handful of picks get you Jordan Clarkson? Possibly. There we go. I don't know. But like that's kind of like the type of things I'm thinking about now is how do we continue to improve the second unit with what they have? They might not make any moves right now. We'll see what happens. But that doesn't mean they won't try and make moves at the trade deadline this year too, or next summer, like depending on how this year goes. Look, they're obviously in a different mindset to continue to improve this team, and they haven't depleted every single asset, I think is the main thing I'm trying to come across. I spent way too much time trying to remember Jordan Clarkson's name.
We found it. I mean, they're not trapped. We're not. The Magic are not trapped.
They're not trapped at all.
It sounds like you're getting at, and what I think a lot of maybe media members don't fully realize, or at least it sounds like they're saying like, we're all in and this is it. This is the team forever. If it doesn't work, you're done. And it's like, or they just trade the one guy that doesn't fit down the line for more picks or a different guy to try.
Totally.
With the overlap with Suggs' skill set, it does have me a little worried about that fit long term. Like that's kind of the question mark to me is how will Bane and Suggs mesh as the backcourt? Because in theory, I love it. I think it's everything that they bring is additive and that nothing they do takes away from the other one. But I guess we'll see. That's on paper. That's in theory. So, but, lastly, on some of the contracts and the trades, like you're saying, I think we've kind of established the core four there with Franz, Paulo, Suggs, and Black. Jeff Weltman even said on the radio today that he wanted to make it a point to keep the core together. And totally. I think for the most part, he did that, especially like the true like core guys at the top. And then from there, I think Wendell and Goga are in. We'll see about Mo because the injury, and we should add that I would think guys like Corey Joseph, Mo Wagner, even Caleb Houston, Gary Houston, I would have thought they would be back next year because they fit in their roles. But because of this trade and the salaries, I believe the team stays under the first apron if they decline all the options, and it gets kind of ugly if they don't. So maybe like they squeeze one or two in, like Mo Wagner because of Franz and Corey Joseph because of the great chemistry. Maybe Gary Harris because he just is a reliable vet, but that's you just can't bring everyone back because of the trade. So that is something to think about is where they're going to get the rest of their depth from. But pieces wise, I think they have the core four. They have two core centers with Wendell and Goga, And you mentioned De Silva and Isaac. I would view them as like the core bench at the moment. So that's like their rotation, their best 8 guys. And then from there, you still have the 25th pick in the draft, 2 seconds late in the draft, Jett Howard, and the free agents that I had mentioned. So, like you said, they can still make another move. Maybe they package Jett Howard, the number 25 pick, one or two of the seconds, and then one of the veterans that we've mentioned, a Wendell or an Isaac and a Goga. Maybe that's a package they can throw together for a guard, like you mentioned before. I think De Silva is closer, is what is like someone they prioritize next. Like I would have loved to hear who they would rather keep, De Silva versus all of those first rounders. Like how do they value De Silva compared to an unprotected first, or compared to that Phoenix swap? Like was
Sure.
that a holding point at all, or what, or is Black the holding point? I would have loved to just hear that kind of what value goes into that. But I think because they kept him, that they value him around that amount. So like probably less, probably aiming to keep him, but maybe shop Jett a little bit because they don't seem to be fully invested in Jett. And I don't think they want to bring in 3 rookies. So I'm expecting 2 of these to be sold off or traded.
Jett might
But he
Jett
also gets
might
opportunity.
not be for sale. I think he's like on the bargain bin, hoping someone walks by and wants to grab him for
Right.
anything.
Former pick, former,
Um,
high touted pick.
if
Former
I
lottery
had
pick.
to think about some things like on the deeper end of the roster, like I don't think you can bring Gary Harris back at 7.5 million. That's just kind of irresponsible for what he's given you. I think you can decline him and bring him back for like, we're going to give you 2 for 6, with a club option on the second end, bring you back in at like 3 million, right around the vet minimum, whatever. Yeah. Bring him in. Yeah. Give him the Corey Joseph deal, which was like 2 for 7, right? Where, it's 3.4. Cause he's just not worth 7.5 million right now next year. And this team can't be in a position where they're overplaying third bench, third string players. And that's what Gary Harris potentially is now. I mean, I guess he could be the second unit shooting guard, but even then, he's not worth 7.5. Decline him, bring him back at a lower cost, in my perspective. Mo Wagner, he's coming off injury, 11 million next year, club option. I would love to see them decline that, but bring them back in on like 3 years for 25. So it's a little bit less of a guaranteed every single year. It's on the cap sheet. It helps them out a little bit, but it's a little bit longer money. Give them like next year and the following year guaranteed with a club option on the third year, something like that. Another player that I think is valued, but probably overpaid for where he's at with the Magic is Goga Bitadze. If Mo Wagner comes back looking strong, they are going to play him next to he's going to be in the second unit because they need that scoring that he offers. And that kind of puts Goga back as the third stringer. 8.3 million for a third string center for this Magic roster is too much when you could trade Goga plus some seconds or Jett or something like that and go get another type of guard for the second unit. Because on most teams, Goga's probably a backup center. But for the Magic and how this roster is constructed, he is a third string center, and having almost, $8.5 million wrapped up in a third string center, that's just doesn't mean I don't think he's not worth that. He's just not worth that in a third string position for the Magic. That's just too much money tied up for players that are not going to be a key rotation player. So that's kind of where my head's at right now, is how do we kind of shore up getting some more better valued contracts for the third unit that can be supplemented into the rotation when their numbers are called upon, and not overpaying for guys that are really third level players. That's kind of where the Magic have to start keeping their cap sheets clean. But that also does give them some tradable contracts because some of these guys could be more valuable to other teams than they are for us, given other teams, roster constructions and what their needs are.
Yeah, all definitely some interesting paths that they could take here. And on some, just looking at that roster that you were talking about, I mean, you have Goga available, maybe Isaac available, maybe De Silva, definitely
Isaac
Jett.
should be available.
Yeah, I think he should too at this point too. But yeah, I mean, all of those are tradable deals, and they do technically have some picks left to attach to it, and you can definitely swap those rotation players with a first round pick to get another rotation player
Totally.
at the very least. I mean, that's a very even trade. That's probably good process for the other team just as much, just to add, our 21st rounder from it, to make it happen. And the only so with I just don't know what happened to Goga, man. Like the first half of the season, I thought we found our defensive anchor, play finisher. He was like
Yeah.
elite defensive ratings, and then like he got a concussion and a leg injury, and he just wasn't the same. And I don't know if it was just that, but like that seemed it's crazy how like I thought that was our guy but it was only like a 20 or 30 game stretch, but it was just long enough where it's like, okay, this is working. Like
I
this
just
could be it.
I think he's just ultimately like best suited for a backup position
Yeah.
and
So one thing
not.
I'll add is the depth piece that if they can, what I do like about the roster construction is that they have two core guards now, two core forwards now. Their fifth core guy is another like guard forward in black, and then all of their rotation guys pretty much are different type of 4 or 5 big men to roll with those lineups, to roll with those four. Like Isaac, defensive anchor; Goga Bitadze, more of a prodding defensive anchor, big man. Mo Wagner, more of a rim roller offensive threat. Wendell, the most stable all around. If we ever get peak Wendell back, we get a DN3 strong. Like I'm just rooting for Wendell to be 100%, because I think that could really solve a lot of our potential like trade idea problems, is Wendell just being back to his normal self. And then from there, it doesn't matter. Do everything that you said. Hope we get peak Wendell back, because I think peak Wendell is sneakily the answer to what we need at center. Like just a guy that can hit the catch and shoot three, hold his own defensively, the strong screens,
Switch
just
one
a
through
smart
five.
player. Like, yeah, switchable defender, like bring back that toughness. And he was my favorite like new Magic player as soon as that trade went down. And I guess my favorite Magic player has changed year to year as we add more and more new Magic players, I guess. But like in terms of the culture setting, as soon as the Vooch trade went down, like Wendell was setting the tone as this like the next center for the Magic, as an anchor on both ends who just played exactly what they wanted in all their players: two-way team first basketball, making quick good decisions, and just brings a really good all-around style that has very few holes in his game. And I really think he's kind of the perfect center for this group, and maybe long-term becomes a six-man-y center for this group, or a spot starter center for this group if they somehow upgrade. But the only way that's going to happen is if you get like a unicorn center, demand a trade, or hit on one in the draft.
It's I mean, I would love to have Wendell back to what he was doing before. He is a potential to be a floor spacer with what he was doing before, but like defensively, like he got a lot of harsh words last year for certain things. And I think some of it was not necessarily valid, because like, dude, okay, you lose Suggs, you lose Franz. Guess who was anchoring that defense and being able to handle switching 1 through 5? And that was Wendell Carter Jr. Like he was very quite good on the defensive end most of last year. The playoffs even proved it even more. And like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm less worried about the starting center right now. And even the backup center, like we have options there. We kind of just got to figure out which ones we want to go with. You can address that a little bit more like at the deadline or even at the off season next year. Maybe when Wendell's next contract kicks in, you basically have a little bit of space there. But all in all, man, this team is super exciting. We got better. The Magic got better with this trade. They did not get worse. They significantly got better, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm excited to see it play out. I'm excited to see what happens at the draft, because we might not be done. It's going to be a fun time. And I'm not a jersey guy, but just to let you guys know how excited I was like, Orlando, I was like, should I buy a Desmond Bane basketball jersey? I probably won't, but I thought about it.
It'll happen soon.
Jerseys,
we didn't even hit on the rebrand. We ran out of time.
No,
but
we ran out of time.
Insane rebrand. Speaking of jerseys,
My
repping
favorite
Cole
one.
today. Got to rep
one.
Cole Anthony one last time here. Magic for at least the rest of the day. He's a Magic man. I don't know how much longer, but Did the trade officially go through at least?
It's official. It was
Is it?
official yesterday. Yeah,
Man,
he's no longer.
shout out to Cole, Ice Cole.
Yeah.
Incredible moments, 5 years of just like his energy being contagious and a huge part of the culture. So shout out Cole Anthony and KCP for at least giving his all defensively last year. And you great point too. I mean, if Wendell is just Wendell again, they could do exactly what you said. Bring back Mo Wagner on a cheap deal. You make Goga Batadze, Isaac, and maybe Jet Howard available with some of the picks. You keep Anthony Black and De Silva off the bench and Mo Wagner and bring one more bench guy with all of those other things, maybe another offensive minded bucket or scorer off the bench. And we're really cooking with their depth. Maybe they keep the 25th pick. Maybe they go and get a guard that can shoot like Walter Clayton, I'm hoping for. Maybe a center like Danny Wolf, playmaking, unique guy I'm a big fan of, or maybe a more traditional like Ryan Kalkbrenner is another guy, target D&3 type center they could go after there. There's a lot of guards in that range that are exciting. Javon Small does a little bit of everything, but I could also see them go with more of like one of the international playmaking prospects as well. So there's a lot of different ways. I kind of do think they will end up with one rookie out of these 3 picks. They'll move around in the draft or something and end up with like the 33rd pick and 2 future for like seconds or something, just to kind of push back a little bit of like push the asset back, but still hold on to it without using it, because there is simply no room for 3 rookies on this list.
Totally.
But
I'm looking forward to reading your draft guide that you just went out. I'm looking forward to checking it out. I saw it come out this morning. Haven't had a chance to look at it just yet, as I'm kind of podcasting in between actually having to work too today. But I'm gonna check it out tonight. So Ryan, man, I do appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. Let's make sure we do this again more often.
Yes, sir. Anytime. Always fun talking Magic hoops. Appreciate you taking the time and the kind words with the draft guide. Check out all your work, Orlando Magic HQ, RIP Close Up Magic podcast. Gotta give a little shout there as well. A classic throwback. And yeah, you can find the draft guide you mentioned. I just launched on Swish Theory today. It's an Orlando Magic centric draft guide, but it works for any. It's a full big board breakdown.
I've heard great things about it, by the way, already. Like I've had multiple people put it up in different group chats and in the Close Up or the Magic HQ Patreon program. A lot of people have already said some nice things about it, so I'm very excited to read it.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm always here to hear any nice things on the internet from anyone, because it doesn't happen that often. So always here for it. I appreciate the love and shout out to all of them. And just can't wait to see what the Magic do here. But thanks for taking the time, man. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely, man. And Ryan, anytime you want to talk basketball, I'm always down. So we'll talk soon. All right.
Same here. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me. See you.
Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.